Baby saw a pregnant German shepherd being ignored and laughed at. The baby's next move melted every heart. What happened next will absolutely shock you and leave you in tears. Before we begin, please hit that like button, share this incredible story, and let us know in the comments where you're listening from around the world. The story you're about to listen to will change how you see the power of a child's innocent heart. The summer air hung thick with the smell of fried onions and cotton candy as families wandered through Riverside's weekend street fair. Children clutched balloons while parents juggled paper plates loaded with funnel cake. Laughter mixed with the distant sound of carnival music, creating the perfect backdrop for what should have been a carefree Saturday afternoon. But not everyone was celebrating. A thin German shepherd, her belly swollen with pregnancy, limped slowly past the colorful food stalls. Her black and tan coat was matted and dirty, and each step seemed to take tremendous effort. She paused near a hot dog stand, her nose twitching at the smell of food, but the vendor quickly shooed her away with a disgusted wave. "Get out of here, mutt!" the man shouted, causing several teenagers nearby to burst into laughter. One of the teens pulled out his phone, pointing the camera at the struggling dog. "This is hilarious," he said to his friends. "Look at this pathetic thing." The pregnant dog's ears drooped as she continued her painful journey through the crowd. People stepped aside to avoid her, some making faces of disgust, others simply pretending she didn't exist. A group of middle-aged women whispered among themselves, shaking their heads. "Someone should call animal control," one woman said loudly enough for others to hear. "It's probably diseased." The dog's dark eyes searched the faces around her, looking for even a hint of kindness. But all she found were turned backs and cold stares. She sat down heavily near a bench, her breathing labored, her tongue hanging out as she panted in the heat. That's when 5-year-old Jake spotted her. Jake had been walking hand in hand with his father Marcus through the fair, wearing his favorite red superhero cape that fluttered behind him with each step. A paper crown from earlier that morning sat crooked on his head, a birthday crown from the children's activity booth. His dark eyes were wide with excitement at all the sights and sounds around him. But when Jake saw the dog, everything else faded away. He stopped walking so suddenly that Marcus nearly stumbled. "Dad, look!" Jake whispered, his small hand slipping from his father's grasp. Marcus followed his son's gaze and saw the pregnant German shepherd sitting alone near the bench. The dog's sides heaved with each breath, and it was clear she was in distress. "Come on, Jake," Marcus said gently, trying to guide his son away. "We should keep moving." But Jake didn't move. Instead, he stared at the dog with an expression that was far too serious for a 5-year-old. His young mind processed what he was seeing in a way that adults had somehow missed. "She's going to be a mommy," Jake said softly, his voice barely audible over the noise of the fair. The teenager with the phone was still recording, making jokes with his friends about the ugly dog, while other fairgoers continued to ignore the animal completely. Some people had even started pointing and laughing, treating the dog's suffering as entertainment. Jake watched all of this, his small hands clenching into fists at his sides. Something stirred in his chest, a feeling he couldn't name but knew was important. It was the same feeling he got when kids at school were mean to his friend Tommy, or when he saw someone crying. Before Marcus could stop him, Jake wriggled free and walked directly toward the dog. "Jake, wait!" Marcus called out, but his son was already kneeling down in front of the German shepherd. The crowd around them seemed to pause, curious about what the small boy was doing. The teenager kept his phone camera rolling, now focusing on Jake instead of just the dog. Jake's cape pooled around him as he knelt in the dirt, bringing himself to the dog's eye level. The German shepherd lifted her head slightly, surprised by this gentle approach. Her tail gave the faintest wag. "Hi, pretty girl," Jake whispered, his voice so soft that only the dog could hear him. "Are you okay?" The dog's ears perked up at the kindness in his tone. She leaned forward slightly, sniffing at Jake's outstretched hand. When she realized he meant no harm, she gently licked his small fingers. Jake smiled, the kind of pure, innocent smile that only children possess. "You're gonna have puppies, aren't you?" he asked, as if the dog could answer him. Around them, the crowd had grown larger. People were starting to notice the interaction between the little boy and the pregnant dog. Some pulled out their own phones, though their intentions weren't as cruel as the original teenagers had been. Marcus approached slowly, not wanting to startle either his son or the dog. "Jake, we need to be careful." he said quietly. "We don't know this dog." But Jake wasn't afraid. He had somehow sensed something in the German Shepherd that the adults had missed. A gentleness beneath the suffering, an intelligence in her dark eyes. The dog seemed to understand that this small human was different from all the others. She shifted closer to Jake, resting her head near his knee. Her breathing was still labored, but she seemed calmer now. That's when Jake noticed the teenager still filming and laughing with his friends. The boy looked up at the teen, his young face serious. The teenager expected maybe tears or fear from the little kid, but what he saw in Jake's eyes was something much more powerful. Determination. "Please help her," Jake said, his voice carrying clearly across the suddenly quiet crowd. The words hung in the air, like a challenge. The teenager's smile faltered as he looked at Jake, then at the dog, then at the faces of the people around them. For the first time, he seemed to really see what was happening. But Jake wasn't done. Without hesitation, he reached up and removed the paper crown from his head. The birthday crown he had been so proud of all morning. The crown was decorated with gold stars and had "Birthday Boy" written in colorful letters. Carefully, with the gentleness that only children possess, Jake placed the crown on the German Shepherd's head. The paper crown sat crooked between her ears, but somehow it looked perfect there. The crowd fell completely silent. Jake then reached into his small backpack and pulled out his juice box, apple juice, his favorite, and the small container of fries he had been saving for later. He set both items down in front of the dog. "You need this more than me," he said simply. The German Shepherd looked at the offerings, then back at Jake. Her tail began to wag more enthusiastically, and she gently nudged the juice box with her nose before looking back at the boy with what could only be described as gratitude. The silence stretched on for several heartbeats. Then, somewhere in the crowd, someone started to clap. It was a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and graying hair, Mrs. Chen, who ran the local community garden. Mrs. Chen stepped forward from the crowd, pulling a soft blanket from her shopping bag. Without a word, she knelt beside Jake and gently draped the blanket around the dog's shoulders. "What's her name?" Mrs. Chen asked Jake, as if the dog naturally belonged to him now. Jake looked at the German Shepherd thoughtfully, taking in her intelligent eyes and regal bearing despite her current condition. "Luna," he said without hesitation. "Her name is Luna." The dog's ears perked up at the name, and she gave another gentle tail wag as if approving of her new identity. The teenager who had been filming lowered his phone, his face flushed with something that looked like shame. The video he had been recording as a joke had captured something entirely different. A moment of pure compassion that was already starting to ripple through the crowd. Other people began stepping forward. A vendor brought over a bowl of water. A mother with 2 young children offered a sandwich. An elderly man produced a small pillow from his car. But it was Jake's simple act, giving away his birthday crown and his snacks, that had started it all. Marcus watched his son with a mixture of pride and concern. Pride because Jake had shown a level of empathy and kindness that amazed him. Concern because he had no idea how to handle the situation they now found themselves in. "Dad," Jake said, looking up at Marcus with those serious dark eyes, "Luna has babies coming. We have to help her." The way Jake said it, not as a question or a request, but as a simple statement of fact, made Marcus realize that his 5-year-old son had just made a decision that would change their lives. The crowd continued to grow, and more people continued to offer help. Someone mentioned calling a veterinarian. Another person suggested animal rescue services. But through it all, Luna kept her eyes fixed on Jake, as if she understood that this small human had just saved her life. The teenage boy who had started filming as a cruel joke found himself still recording, but now for entirely different reasons. Without really thinking about it, he uploaded the video to his social media accounts with a simple caption. "This little kid just restored my faith in humanity." Within minutes, the video began to spread. Jake didn't know about the video or the social media attention. He was focused entirely on Luna, gently stroking her fur and whispering comforting words. The paper crown sat proudly on her head, and despite her condition, she held herself with dignity. "We're going to take care of you," Jake promised the dog. "Right, Dad?" Marcus looked at his son, then at Luna, then at the crowd of people who had gathered around them. He thought about their small apartment, their tight budget, and the fact that he had no experience with dogs, let alone pregnant ones. But then he looked at Jake's face, hopeful and determined and full of love, and he knew there was only one answer he could give. "Right?" Marcus said quietly. "We're going to take care of her." As if understanding the promise that had just been made, Luna struggled to her feet and took a few steps closer to Jake and Marcus. The blanket Mrs. Chen had provided draped around her shoulders like a royal robe, and the birthday crown still sat between her ears. The teenager approached them hesitantly. "Hey kid," he said to Jake, "I'm sorry I was being mean before. Your dog, Luna, she's really pretty." Jake looked up at the older boy and smiled. "She's not just pretty," he said. "She's brave." The teenager nodded, understanding for the first time that Jake was right. Luna was brave. She had wandered through a crowd of people who had treated her terribly, looking for help for herself and her unborn puppies. And somehow, she had found exactly what she needed in the kindness of a 5-year-old boy. But what nobody knew yet, not Jake, not Marcus, not even Luna herself, was that her story was far more complicated than anyone imagined. The faint scar on her ear, barely visible beneath her fur, told a story of its own. And there were people looking for her. People who wouldn't be as kind as a little boy with a paper crown. The video of Jake's kindness continued to spread across social media, gathering likes and shares and comments from people around the world. But it was also being seen by someone who recognized the dog in the footage, someone who considered Luna to be his property, someone who would stop at nothing to get her back. The drive home from the fair felt like the longest 20 minutes of Marcus's life. Luna sat in the back seat with Jake, who had insisted on keeping one small hand gently resting on her paw the entire time. Every few seconds, Marcus glanced in the rearview mirror, watching his son whisper soft reassurances to the pregnant dog. "It's okay, Luna," Jake murmured. "We're going to our house now. You'll like it there." Marcus gripped the steering wheel tighter. Their apartment was small, just 2 bedrooms on the 3rd floor of an old building. The landlord didn't allow pets, and Marcus's savings account had exactly $237 in it. He had no idea how to care for a pregnant dog, no veterinarian on speed dial, and no clue what he was getting himself into. But every time he looked at Jake's determined little face in the mirror, he knew he couldn't back out now. Luna's breathing had become more labored during the car ride. She panted heavily, and Marcus noticed she kept shifting uncomfortably. The paper crown had slipped slightly over one ear, but she still wore it like the queen Jake believed her to be. "Dad," Jake said quietly as they pulled into their apartment complex's parking lot, "Luna doesn't look good." Marcus parked the car and turned around to see Luna struggling to lift her head. Her eyes were glassy and her tongue hung out as she breathed rapidly. Even with the air conditioning running, she seemed to be overheating. "We need to get her upstairs and into some cool air," Marcus said, trying to sound calmer than he felt. The apartment building didn't have an elevator, and Marcus wasn't sure Luna could make it up 3 flights of stairs in her condition. But as soon as he opened the car door, Luna somehow found the strength to stand. She moved slowly but determinedly, as if she understood that safety lay just ahead. Jake walked beside her, one tiny hand resting on her back. "Come on, Luna," he encouraged. "Just a little bit more." They made it up the first flight of stairs before Luna had to stop and rest. She sat heavily on the landing, her sides heaving. Marcus looked at his watch. It was almost 6 o'clock on a Saturday evening. Most veterinary offices would be closed. "Maybe I should call 911, Marcus muttered, pulling out his phone. "Does 911 help dogs?" Jake asked innocently. Before Marcus could answer, their neighbor Mrs. Rodriguez appeared in the stairwell. She was a nurse at the local hospital and had lived in the building for over 15 years. She took one look at Luna and immediately understood the situation. "Oh my," she said softly. "How far along is she?" "We don't know," Marcus admitted. "We just found her at the fair. Jake insisted we bring her home, but now I'm thinking maybe we should have taken her straight to an animal hospital." Mrs. Rodriguez knelt down and gently examined Luna, running her hands along the dog's sides. Luna didn't resist. It was as if she knew this woman was trying to help. "She's very close," Mrs. Rodriguez said quietly. "These babies could come any time. Do you have a veterinarian's number?" Marcus shook his head, feeling completely out of his depth. Mrs. Rodriguez pulled out her phone. "My daughter works at the Riverside Animal Clinic. Let me call Dr. Sarah. She might still be there." While Mrs. Rodriguez made the call, Jake continued comforting Luna. He had taken off his superhero cape and was using it as a makeshift pillow for her head. Luna's eyes never left the boy's face, as if drawing strength from his presence. "Doctor? Sarah?" Mrs. Rodriguez spoke into her phone. "It's Elena Rodriguez. I have an emergency situation here. A pregnant German Shepherd found at the fair. Yes, she looks very close to delivery." Marcus listened anxiously as Mrs. Rodriguez explained the situation. He could hear a woman's voice on the other end of the line, but couldn't make out the words. "She's closing the clinic now," Mrs. Rodriguez said after hanging up. "But she's willing to come here and take a look. She should be here in about 30 minutes. "Here?" Marcus asked. "To our apartment?" "Doctor, Sarah makes house calls for emergencies," Mrs. Rodriguez explained, "especially when moving the animal might be dangerous." They managed to get Luna up the remaining 2 flights of stairs and into Marcus's apartment. The small living room suddenly felt even smaller, with a large German Shepherd taking up space. But Luna seemed grateful to finally be somewhere safe and cool. Jake immediately set about making Luna comfortable. He brought his own pillow from his bedroom and placed it next to the couch. He filled a bowl with cool water and set it within Luna's reach. Then he sat cross-legged on the floor beside her, gently stroking her fur. "See, Luna? I told you our house was nice," Jake said softly. Marcus watched his son with amazement. Jake had never been around dogs before, but he seemed to instinctively know how to care for Luna. There was something almost magical about the bond between them. 25 minutes later, there was a gentle knock at the door. Marcus opened it to find a woman in her 30s with kind eyes and a veterinary bag slung over her shoulder. "Dr. Sarah Kim," she introduced herself. "Elena called me about your emergency." Dr. Sarah took one look at Luna and immediately went to work. She knelt beside the dog and began a gentle examination, checking her heart rate, temperature, and feeling along her swollen belly. "How long has she been like this?" Dr. Sarah asked. "We found her about 2 hours ago," Marcus explained. "She was wandering around the street fair and people were not being very kind to her." Dr. Sarah nodded grimly. "I see this more often than I'd like. Pregnant strays looking for a safe place to give birth." She paused in her examination and looked more closely at Luna's ear. "That's interesting." "What is it?" Marcus asked. "She has a small scar here," Dr. Sarah said, gently parting the fur near Luna's ear. "It looks like it might be from a tattoo or some kind of identification mark that was removed." Jake looked up from where he was sitting beside Luna. "Does that hurt her?" "No, sweetie," Dr. Sarah assured him. "It's an old scar. It doesn't hurt anymore." But her expression was troubled as she continued examining the mark. "What does that mean?" Marcus asked quietly. Dr. Sarah lowered her voice. "Sometimes breeding operations will tattoo or brand their dogs for identification. If someone tried to remove that mark..." She didn't finish the sentence, but Marcus understood the implication. "You think someone might be looking for her?" "It's possible, Doctor," Sarah said carefully. "But right now, our main concern needs to be her immediate health and the puppies." Dr. Sarah completed her examination and sat back on her heels. "The good news is that she's healthy, considering what she's been through. The babies seem to be developing normally, and I don't detect any immediate complications." "When will the puppies come?" Jake asked. "Very soon," Dr. Sarah replied. "Could be tonight, could be tomorrow. When labor starts, it usually progresses fairly quickly with German Shepherds." Marcus felt a knot of anxiety in his stomach. "What do we need to do?" Dr. Sarah opened her bag and began pulling out supplies. "I'm going to leave you with some things that will help. Clean towels, some nutritional supplements, and my emergency number. The most important thing is to keep her comfortable and calm." She handed Marcus a small bottle of liquid vitamins. "Give her 1 dropper full of this every few hours. It will help keep her strength up, and make sure she has constant access to fresh water." "What about food?" Marcus asked. "Small, frequent meals if she'll eat. Don't worry if she doesn't have much appetite right now. That's normal for a dog this close to delivery." Dr. Sarah then turned to Jake, who had been listening intently to every word. "You seem to have a special connection with Luna," she said gently. "Dogs can sense when someone truly cares about them. Your calm energy is probably helping her more than you know." Jake beamed with pride. "Luna and I are friends." "I can see that, Doctor." Sarah smiled. "When the puppies start coming, Luna might want you nearby." but you'll need to let the adults handle the delivery, okay? Jake nodded seriously. I'll be her helper. After Dr. Sarah left, promising to check in first thing in the morning, Marcus found himself alone with Jake and Luna in the quiet apartment. Luna had settled onto the pile of blankets they had arranged for her, with Jake's superhero cape still serving as her pillow. The paper birthday crown sat on the coffee table nearby. Jake had carefully removed it so Luna could rest more comfortably. "Dad," Jake said, as Marcus tucked him into bed later that night, "are you worried about Luna?" Marcus considered lying, telling his son that everything would be fine. But Jake had already shown such maturity and compassion that day. He deserved honesty. "A little bit," Marcus admitted. "Taking care of puppies is a big responsibility, and we don't know much about Luna's past." Jake was quiet for a moment. "I think Luna was lost," he said finally. "And now she's found." The simplicity of Jake's statement hit Marcus harder than he expected. Found. Yes, Luna had been found. But by whom exactly? Had Jake found Luna, or had Luna found them? Around midnight, Marcus was awakened by a soft whimpering sound from the living room. He got up and found Luna pacing restlessly, unable to get comfortable. Her breathing had changed again, becoming more rapid and shallow. Marcus grabbed his phone and called Dr. Sarah's emergency line. "It sounds like early labor." Dr. Sarah's voice came through the phone, thick with sleep but immediately alert. "Is she in obvious distress?" Marcus watched Luna circle the blanket area 3 times before lying down, only to get up again immediately. "She can't seem to settle, and she's panting really hard." That's normal early labor behavior. The panting is how dogs manage pain. As long as she's not crying out in obvious distress, you can wait it out. But call me immediately if anything changes. How long does labor usually last? For a first-time mother, anywhere from 6 to 12 hours. For an experienced mother, it could be much shorter. Marcus hung up the phone and settled into the armchair where he could watch Luna closely. She finally managed to lie down on her side, though she continued panting heavily. Around 2 in the morning, Jake appeared in the living room doorway in his pajamas. "I heard Luna," he said simply. Marcus started to tell his son to go back to bed, but something stopped him. Luna's head lifted when she saw Jake, and her tail gave a weak wag. "Can I sit with her?" Jake asked. Marcus nodded, and Jake padded over to Luna's makeshift bed. He sat cross-legged beside her and began speaking in the same soft, comforting tone he'd used at the fair. "It's okay, Luna. You're safe now. Your babies are going to be so lucky to have you as their mommy." Luna's breathing seemed to slow slightly as Jake's voice washed over her. She rested her head closer to where he was sitting, and Marcus could swear he saw some of the tension leave her body. They stayed like that for the next 2 hours, Jake murmuring gentle reassurances, while Marcus watched over them both. Around 4 in the morning, Luna's behavior changed dramatically. She became more restless, and her panting intensified. Marcus called Dr. Sarah again. "Active labor," she confirmed after Marcus described the symptoms. "I'm on my way." Dr. Sarah arrived just as the sun was beginning to rise. She took one look at Luna and nodded grimly. "This is it. Jake, you're going to be a big brother to some puppies very soon." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Luna worked hard, with Dr. Sarah coaching her through the process and Jake serving as an emotional support system. Marcus found himself running back and forth, fetching towels, boiling water, making sure Jake ate breakfast even though the boy didn't want to leave Luna's side. The first puppy arrived at 7:23 a.m., but it wasn't breathing. Dr. Sarah immediately went to work, clearing the puppy's airways and rubbing its tiny chest. Jake watched with wide, frightened eyes as the veterinarian worked frantically over the motionless little body. "Come on, little one," Dr. Sarah murmured, continuing her efforts. Jake suddenly scooted closer. "Can I help?" Dr. Sarah looked at the 5-year-old boy, then at the puppy in her hands. "Put your finger right here," she said, guiding Jake's small index finger to a spot on the puppy's chest. Very gentle circles. Jake followed her instructions, his face serious with concentration. "Please breathe, little puppy," he whispered, and then, as if responding to Jake's plea, the puppy let out a tiny squeak. Dr. Sarah smiled with relief as the puppy began moving and breathing on its own. "Well done, Jake. I think you have a natural gift for this." Jake beamed as doctor. Sarah placed the puppy next to Luna, who immediately began cleaning her newborn with gentle licks. By 10 o'clock that morning, Luna had delivered 5 healthy puppies. Jake had helped with each one, earning Dr. Sarah's praise for his calm demeanor and gentle touch. He had already begun naming them: Pebble, Sky, Bolt, Muffin, and Comet. "Luna's such a good mama," Jake said, watching as the puppies nursed contentedly. Dr. Sarah packed up her supplies, looking satisfied with the morning's work. She is indeed, and she's lucky to have found such a caring family. As she prepared to leave, Dr. Sarah pulled Marcus aside. "There's something you should know," she said quietly. "While Luna was in labor, I got a better look at that scar on her ear. I'm almost certain it's from a removed tattoo, specifically the kind used by commercial breeding operations." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. What does that mean for us? It might mean nothing. She could have been sold or given away legitimately. But ... Dr. Sarah hesitated. Sometimes dogs are stolen from breeding facilities, or they escape. If someone is looking for her, they might want her back, Marcus finished. Dr. Sarah nodded. "I'm probably being overly cautious, but you might want to be aware of your surroundings for the next few weeks. And if anyone comes around asking about a German Shepherd, be careful about what information you share." As Dr. Sarah left, Marcus's phone buzzed with a notification. He had been so focused on Luna and the puppies that he had forgotten to check his social media all morning. The notification was about the video from the fair. Marcus opened the app and stared in shock. The video of Jake giving Luna his birthday crown had been shared over 50,000 times. The comment section was flooded with messages from people around the world, praising Jake's kindness and asking for updates about Luna. But as Marcus scrolled through the comments, one particular message made his blood run cold. "That's my dog. I know where you live now." Marcus looked over at Jake, who was curled up on the floor next to Luna and her puppies, finally getting some rest after the long night. Luna's eyes met Marcus's across the room, and he could swear he saw a flicker of fear there, as if she somehow knew that their peaceful morning was about to be shattered. Outside, a black van drove slowly past their apartment building for the second time that day. Marcus deleted the threatening comment immediately, his hands trembling slightly as he did so. He didn't want Jake to see it, and he certainly didn't want to worry about it while Luna was still recovering from giving birth. But the message kept echoing in his mind. "That's my dog. I know where you live now." How could someone know where they lived? The video had been taken at the fair, not at their apartment. Unless... Marcus walked to the window and peered down at the street below. The black van was gone, but the feeling of being watched lingered. He told himself he was being paranoid, that it was probably just a cruel internet troll making empty threats. But Dr. Sarah's warning about Luna's scar kept nagging at him. "Dad, look!" Jake's excited voice drew Marcus away from the window. Pebble opened her eyes. Marcus knelt down beside his son, grateful for the distraction. The smallest puppy, whom Jake had named Pebble, was indeed blinking up at them with tiny dark eyes. Luna watched proudly as her baby squirmed and nursed. "They're so little," Jake whispered in wonder. "When will they be big enough to play?" "Not for several weeks," Marcus said, stroking Jake's hair. "Right now, they need to stay close to their mama and drink her milk to grow strong." Jake nodded seriously as if committing this information to memory. "I'm going to take really good care of them. All of them." The rest of Sunday passed peacefully. Luna seemed content in her new home, though Marcus noticed she remained alert to every sound from outside. Her ears would perk up whenever footsteps echoed in the hallway or when cars passed by on the street below. Jake appointed himself as head puppy caretaker. He sat by Luna's side for hours, talking softly to the puppies and helping Marcus change their bedding when needed. The boy's dedication was touching, but Marcus couldn't shake his growing anxiety about the threatening message. That evening, after Jake had finally fallen asleep, curled up on the floor next to Luna's bed, Marcus's phone rang. The caller ID showed Dr. Sarah's number. "I hope I'm not calling too late," Dr. Sarah said when Marcus answered. "I wanted to check on Luna and the puppies." "They're all doing well," Marcus reported. "Luna's eating and drinking, and all 5 puppies seem healthy." "That's wonderful. And Jake?" Marcus smiled despite his worries. "He's been the perfect helper. I think he's more devoted to those puppies than I've ever seen him with anything else. Dogs have a way of bringing out the best in children, Dr. Sarah said. But Marcus, there's something else I wanted to discuss with you. After I left your apartment this morning, I did some research on that scar pattern I saw on Luna's ear. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. What did you find? I contacted a colleague who works with animal rescue organizations. She's seen similar markings before. They're typically used by large-scale breeding operations, often the kind that prioritize profit over animal welfare. Puppy mills? Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. Possibly. But here's what concerns me more. The way the tattoo was removed suggests it was done hastily, maybe even by someone who wasn't qualified. That kind of removal is usually done when someone is trying to hide a dog's origin. Marcus sank into his chair, feeling overwhelmed. So, Luna might have been stolen? Or she might have escaped. Either way, if she came from one of these operations, the owners might view her as valuable property, especially now that she's proven she can produce healthy litters. The threatening comment on the video suddenly made more sense. Marcus told Dr. Sarah about the message and his concerns about being watched. I think you should contact the police, Doctor, Sarah said immediately. Even if it turns out to be nothing, it's better to have a report on file. What about Luna and the puppies? If these people are as bad as you're suggesting? Don't let fear paralyze you, Dr. Sarah said firmly. Luna chose you and Jake. She could have kept walking at that fair, but she stopped for your son. Sometimes animals know things we don't. After hanging up with Dr. Sarah, Marcus spent a sleepless night researching puppy mills and dog theft online. What he learned made him sick to his stomach. The images of cramped, dirty kennels and neglected animals painted a picture of an industry that treated dogs like inventory rather than living beings. If Luna had come from such a place, Marcus understood why she had seemed so grateful for even the smallest kindness from Jake. She had probably never experienced gentleness before that day at the fair. Monday morning brought new challenges. Marcus had to return to work at the auto parts store, but he was reluctant to leave Jake and Luna alone. Mrs. Rodriguez from downstairs offered to check on them during the day, which provided some comfort. I'll keep my eyes open too, she promised. If anything seems suspicious, I'll call you immediately. Jake was upset about Marcus leaving, not because he was afraid, but because he didn't want to miss a moment of the puppy's development. What if they do something important while you're gone? Jake asked seriously. Mrs. Rodriguez will take pictures, Marcus assured him, and I'll be home for lunch to check on everyone. As Marcus prepared to leave for work, he noticed Luna's behavior had changed. She was more restless than she had been the day before, frequently getting up to look out the window. When Marcus approached her bed to say goodbye, she whined softly and nudged his hand. What is it, girl? Marcus asked, but Luna just stared at him with those intelligent dark eyes, as if trying to communicate something important. Jake interpreted the dog's behavior differently. She's saying thank you, he announced confidently, and she's promising to take good care of me while you're at work. Marcus wanted to believe his son's innocent interpretation, but Luna's anxious energy suggested something else entirely. At work, Marcus found it impossible to concentrate. Every time his phone buzzed, he expected bad news. His coworker Dave noticed his distraction immediately. You look like you haven't slept in a week, Dave observed. Everything okay at home? Marcus found himself telling Dave the whole story about finding Luna at the fair, Jake's instant connection with her, the birth of the puppies, and his growing concerns about her mysterious past. Dave listened thoughtfully. You know, my brother-in-law is a cop. Want me to give him a call? Maybe he could swing by your place a few times today just to keep an eye on things. Would you? I'd feel a lot better knowing someone official was aware of the situation. Dave made the call during lunch break, and Officer Chen agreed to include Marcus's apartment building in his patrol route for the next few days. When Marcus returned home for lunch, he found Jake in the living room, showing the puppies a picture book about animals. Luna was lying protectively around her babies, but her ears were constantly swiveling toward the windows and the door. How has she been? Marcus asked Mrs. Rodriguez, who was knitting in the corner chair. Nervous, Mrs. Rodriguez said bluntly. Every little sound has her on alert, and around 11 this morning, she started that low growling sound. Growling at what? I'm not sure. She was looking toward the front window, but when I checked, I didn't see anything unusual. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. He walked to the window and looked down at the street. Everything appeared normal. People walking, cars parked along the curb, the usual midday activity of the neighborhood. But then he noticed something that made his blood run cold. Across the street, parked under a large oak tree, was a black van. The same van he had seen yesterday, or at least one that looked identical. The windows were tinted too dark to see inside, but Marcus had the distinct feeling that someone was watching their building. "Mrs. Rodriguez," Marcus said quietly, trying not to alarm Jake. "Could you take Jake into the kitchen for a snack? I need to make a phone call." She nodded, understanding immediately that something was wrong. Marcus called Officer Chen directly. "There's a suspicious van parked across from my building," he reported. "It matches the description of one I saw yesterday." "I'm about 3 blocks away," Officer Chen said. "I'll cruise by and check it out." Within 5 minutes, Marcus saw a police car turn onto their street. As soon as the patrol car came into view, the black van's engine started and it pulled away from the curb, driving in the opposite direction. Officer Chen called Marcus back. "The van was gone by the time I got there, but I got a partial license plate. I'm going to run it through the system and see what comes up." "Thank you," Marcus said, feeling both relieved and more worried than before. When Jake returned from the kitchen, he immediately sensed the tension in the room. "Is something wrong with Luna?" he asked, noticing how the dog was still on high alert. "Luna's fine," Marcus assured him. "She's just being a good mama, making sure her babies are safe." Jake seemed to accept this explanation, but Marcus noticed his son staying closer to Luna than usual for the rest of the afternoon. That evening, Dr. Sarah stopped by for her promised follow-up visit. All 5 puppies were thriving, and Luna's condition was excellent. But Dr. Sarah also noticed the dog's anxious behavior. "She's definitely sensing something," Dr. Sarah confirmed after observing Luna for several minutes. "Dogs have much better instincts about danger than we do." "So, you think my concerns are justified?" "I think your concerns are keeping your family safe," Dr. Sarah replied. "Better to be overly cautious than to ignore warning signs." As Dr. Sarah prepared to leave, she pulled a small device from her veterinary bag. "This is a GPS tracker," she explained. "It's designed for hunting dogs, but it works for any canine. If someone tries to take Luna, you'll be able to track her location." Marcus looked at the small, collar-mounted device. "You really think someone might try to take her?" "I hope not. But if Luna is as valuable to these people as I suspect, they might be desperate enough to try something drastic." Dr. Sarah helped Marcus attach the GPS collar around Luna's neck, carefully adjusting it so it wouldn't interfere with her care of the puppies. Luna tolerated the new collar without complaint, as if she understood it was for her protection. "The tracking app is on your phone now, Doctor," Sarah explained. "You'll get an alert if Luna moves more than 100 yards from your apartment." After Dr. Sarah left, Marcus tried to maintain a normal evening routine for Jake's sake. They ate dinner, read stories, and Jake spent quality time with Luna and the puppies before bed. But as Marcus tucked his son in, Jake surprised him with a serious question. "Dad, are there bad people who might want to hurt Luna?" Marcus hesitated, not wanting to frighten his son, but also not wanting to lie. "There might be people who think Luna belongs to them," he said carefully, "but we're going to keep her safe." Jake nodded solemnly. "Luna chose us, didn't she? At the fair, she could have gone to anyone, but she came to me." "That's right, buddy, and now she's part of our family." "Then we have to protect our family," Jake said, with the kind of determination that amazed Marcus. "That's what families do." Around midnight, Marcus was awakened by Luna's low growling. He got up quietly and found her standing at the living room window, her body tense and alert. The puppies continued sleeping peacefully, but Luna's attention was focused entirely on something outside. Marcus crept to the window and peered through the blinds. At first, he saw nothing unusual. Then, movement in the shadows caught his eye. A figure dressed in dark clothing was moving between the cars in the parking lot, appearing to check license plates and peer into windows. The person moved with purpose, as if searching for something specific. Marcus grabbed his phone and called 911. "This is a non-emergency call," he said quietly to the dispatcher. "But there's someone suspicious in my apartment complex parking lot, and I have reason to believe they might be looking for my dog." The dispatcher took his information and promised to send an officer to investigate. Marcus stayed at the window, watching as the figure continued their search. Luna remained at his side, her growling becoming more intense. Then the figure stopped at Marcus's car. The person spent several minutes examining Marcus's vehicle, even trying the door handles. Marcus felt his heart pounding as he realized this wasn't a random prowler. Someone was specifically looking for evidence that Luna was here. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. The figure in the parking lot heard them too, and immediately began moving toward the street. By the time the patrol car arrived, the intruder had disappeared into the neighborhood. Officer Chen was among the responding officers. He took Marcus's statement and examined the parking lot with a flashlight. "Whoever it was, they were definitely focused on your car," Officer Chen confirmed. "I found footprints all around it, and it looks like they might have been trying to see inside." "What does this mean?" Marcus asked. "It means your concerns about being watched were correct," Officer Chen said grimly. "I'm going to recommend increased patrols in this area, and I think you should consider staying somewhere else for a few days." Marcus looked back at his apartment, where Jake was somehow still sleeping peacefully, and Luna was caring for her newborn puppies. The idea of uprooting them again seemed cruel, but the alternative might be worse. "Let me think about it," Marcus said. "Maybe tomorrow we can make some decisions." But as Officer Chen and his partner drove away, Marcus realized that the decision might be made for them. Luna padded over to where he stood in the doorway and pressed against his leg, as if offering comfort. "We're going to figure this out, girl," Marcus whispered, stroking her fur. "I promise." Luna looked up at him with those wise, trusting eyes, and Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settle heavily on his shoulders. Somewhere out there, dangerous people were looking for this gentle dog and her innocent puppies, and the only thing standing between them and Luna's family was a single father and a 5-year-old boy with a heart bigger than the world. But maybe, Marcus thought as he watched Luna return to her babies, love and determination would be enough. The GPS tracker on Luna's collar blinked steadily in the darkness, a small beacon of hope in an increasingly uncertain situation. Tuesday morning brought an unexpected development that changed everything. Marcus was getting ready for work when his phone buzzed with dozens of notifications. The video of Jake and Luna had exploded overnight, reaching over 2 million views and being shared by several major news outlets. But it wasn't just the numbers that worried Marcus. It was the attention. Local news stations were calling, wanting to interview the little boy who saved the pregnant dog. A national morning show had reached out about featuring their story. Hundreds of people were commenting with offers of help, donations, and support. Marcus stared at his phone in disbelief. While he was grateful for the outpouring of kindness, he realized that all this attention meant their location was no longer a secret. If dangerous people were looking for Luna, they now had a much easier way to find her. "Dad, why do you look worried?" Jake asked, appearing in the kitchen doorway with bed hair and his favorite dinosaur pajamas. "The video of you and Luna is getting a lot of attention," Marcus explained carefully. "People all over the world are talking about how kind you were to her." Jake's face lit up with pride, but then he grew more serious. "Does that mean the bad people will see it too?" Marcus was constantly amazed by his son's perceptive nature. "It might, buddy. That's why we need to be extra careful." As if summoned by their conversation, Luna appeared from the living room, moving slowly but alertly. The puppies had kept her busy all night with their feeding schedule, but she still managed to position herself protectively between Jake and the front door. Marcus's phone rang, and he saw Dr. Sarah's number on the display. "I've been watching the news coverage, Doctor," Sarah said without preamble. "Marcus, you need to know that this level of publicity could be very dangerous if Luna really did come from a criminal operation." "I know," Marcus said, watching Jake gently pet Luna while she allowed him to check on the sleeping puppies. "But what can we do? The video is already out there." "I've been making some calls this morning, Doctor," Sarah continued. "I have a contact at the State Animal Rescue Division who specializes in puppy mill investigations, Detective Laura Martinez. She wants to meet with you today." "A detective? Is this really that serious?" "Marcus, if Luna escaped from or was stolen from a large breeding operation, she could be worth tens of thousands of dollars to them. They won't just give up and walk away." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "What time can this detective meet?" "She's actually in the area investigating another case. She could be at your apartment in an hour if that works." After agreeing to the meeting, Marcus called in, sick to work. He couldn't leave Jake and Luna alone, not with everything that was happening. Detective Martinez arrived exactly 1 hour later. She was a woman in her 40s with kind but serious eyes and an immediate professional demeanor. She took one look at Luna and nodded grimly. "I've seen that ear scar pattern before," she said, kneeling down to examine Luna more closely. "Doctor," Kim was right to be concerned. Luna seemed to sense that Detective Martinez was there to help. She allowed the examination without resistance, though she kept one eye on Jake at all times. "Can you tell me exactly how you found her?" Detective Martinez asked, pulling out a notebook. Marcus and Jake told the story together: the street fair, the crowd's cruel treatment of Luna, Jake's compassionate response, and everything that had happened since. Detective Martinez listened intently, occasionally asking clarifying questions. "The timing is interesting," she said when they finished. "We've been investigating a large-scale breeding operation about 50 miles north of here. 3 weeks ago, several dogs went missing from their facility. The owners claimed it was a break-in, but we suspect some of the animals may have escaped during a transport." "You think Luna was one of those dogs?" Marcus asked. "It's very possible. The description matches and the timing fits." Detective Martinez showed them a photo on her tablet. "This is the facility we're investigating." Marcus looked at the image and felt sick. Rows of small, cramped cages filled a warehouse-like building. Dogs of various breeds were crowded together, in conditions that looked more like a prison than a home. Jake stared at the photo with wide eyes. "Luna lived there?" "She might have," Detective Martinez said gently. "Places like this treat dogs like they're products instead of living beings." Jake looked at Luna with new understanding. No wonder she was so scared at the fair. She didn't know people could be nice. Detective Martinez smiled at Jake's insight. "You probably gave her the first kindness she'd experienced in a long time." "What happens now?" Marcus asked. "Well, the good news is that even if Luna did come from this facility, you're not in any legal trouble. You found her abandoned and provided care. The law is on your side." "And the bad news?" Detective Martinez's expression grew more serious. "The people who run these operations don't always care about what the law says. They see dogs like Luna as valuable property, especially breeding females who have proven they can produce healthy litters. So they might try to take her back. They might try. That's why I'm here." Detective Martinez pulled out some official-looking paperwork. "I'm going to file a report that establishes Luna and her puppies as evidence in an ongoing investigation. That gives us legal grounds to protect them." "Evidence?" Jake asked, looking worried. "Don't worry, sweetie," Detective Martinez assured him. "That just means Luna gets to stay with you while we make sure the bad people can't hurt her anymore." As Detective Martinez completed her paperwork, Marcus's phone buzzed with another call from a news station. He declined it, but the calls kept coming. "You might want to consider giving one interview," Detective Martinez suggested. "If you control the narrative, you can avoid having reporters show up at your door unexpectedly." "I don't want Jake exposed to all that attention," Marcus said. "What if we did it anonymously? Just audio, no faces shown? You could use fake names." Marcus considered this. "What would we say?" "The truth. That Luna is safe, recovering, and being cared for. That might satisfy public curiosity without giving away too much information." They agreed to do a brief phone interview with a local radio station that afternoon. But first, Detective Martinez wanted to set up some security measures. "I'm going to arrange for regular police patrols in this area," she explained, "and I want you to change your daily routines. Don't go to the same places at the same times every day." "For how long?" Marcus asked. "Until we can shut down this operation permanently. My team is gathering evidence for a major raid, but it could take several weeks." The radio interview went well. Marcus and Jake, using the names Mark and Jamie, told their story without revealing their location or last name. Jake's natural charm came through even over the phone, and Marcus could tell the interviewer was genuinely moved by their story. "What would you want people to know about Luna?" the interviewer asked Jake. "That she's the best mama ever," Jake replied without hesitation, "and that all dogs deserve to be loved, not kept in cages." After the interview, Marcus felt a sense of relief. They had controlled their narrative without revealing too much personal information. But that evening, their sense of security was shattered. Marcus was washing dishes while Jake played quietly with the puppies in the living room. Luna was resting nearby, but as always, she remained alert to every sound. Around 8 o'clock, Luna suddenly stood up, her body rigid with tension. A low growl rumbled in her throat as she stared toward the front door. Marcus turned off the water and listened carefully. At first, he heard nothing unusual. Then, very faintly, he detected the sound of footsteps in the hallway outside their apartment. The footsteps stopped directly outside their door. Marcus motioned for Jake to stay quiet and moved carefully toward the window. He peered through the blinds and saw the black van parked across the street again. This time, there were two of them. His phone was in the living room, and he needed to call for help without alerting whoever was outside their door. Marcus crept back toward Jake, but before he could reach his phone, he heard a sound that made his blood freeze. Someone was trying to pick the lock on their front door. The metallic scratching sound was barely audible, but Luna heard it clearly. Her growling intensified, and the hair along her back stood up. Even the puppies seemed to sense danger, whimpering softly in their bed. Marcus grabbed his phone and quickly dialed 911, whispering their address and situation to the dispatcher. Then he scooped Jake up in his arms and carried him toward the back bedroom, Luna following closely behind with her protective instincts in full alert mode. "What's happening, Dad?" Jake whispered, his small arms tight around Marcus's neck. "Someone's trying to get into our apartment," Marcus whispered back. "But the police are coming." They huddled in the back bedroom, Luna positioned protectively in front of them. Marcus could hear the lock-picking continuing at the front door, accompanied by hushed voices in the hallway. Then, suddenly, the sounds stopped. Marcus heard rapid footsteps moving away from their door, followed by the distant sound of car engines starting. Within minutes, police sirens wailed in the distance. Detective Martinez arrived with the responding officers. She examined the front door and found clear evidence of tampering with the lock. They were definitely trying to break in, she confirmed, but something spooked them before they could get inside. Probably heard the sirens, Officer Chen suggested. He had become familiar with their situation over the past few days. "This changes things," Detective Martinez said grimly. "They're escalating. We can't wait for the raid anymore." "What do you mean?" Marcus asked. "I mean, we need to get you and your family somewhere safe while my team moves against this operation immediately." Jake looked up from where he was comforting Luna and the puppies. "Are we going to have to leave Luna?" "No way," Detective Martinez said firmly. "Luna and her babies are coming with you? We're all family now." That night, Marcus packed their essential belongings while Detective Martinez made arrangements for a safe house. It was a small cottage about 30 miles away, owned by a retired police officer who often helped with witness protection situations. "How long will we have to stay there?" Marcus asked as they prepared to leave. "Hopefully not long," Detective Martinez replied. "My team is moving fast. We should have enough evidence for arrest warrants within 48 hours. As they loaded Luna and the puppies into Detective Martinez's unmarked car, Jake suddenly stopped. "Wait," he said, running back into the apartment. He emerged a moment later, carrying the paper crown from the fair, the birthday crown he had placed on Luna's head that first day. "Luna needs her crown," Jake explained seriously. "It's how this whole story started." Detective Martinez smiled as Jake carefully placed the crown in the car next to Luna's carrier. "You're absolutely right, Jake. Some things are too important to leave behind." As they drove through the night toward the safe house, Marcus reflected on how much their lives had changed in just a few days. They had started as strangers to Luna, and now they were a family on the run, protecting each other from people who saw love as a commodity and kindness as weakness. But looking at Jake gently stroking Luna's fur while she watched over her sleeping puppies, Marcus knew they had made the right choice at every step. Some things were worth fighting for, worth sacrificing for, worth risking everything to protect. Luna looked up at Marcus through the car window, and he could swear he saw gratitude in her dark eyes. She had found her way from a world of cruelty to a family that would move heaven and earth to keep her safe. The GPS tracker on her collar continued blinking steadily, but now it represented something different. Instead of a tool to find her if she was taken, it had become a symbol of the bond that connected all of them, a beacon of hope guiding them toward a future where love would triumph over greed, and where a little boy's compassion could change the world. As Detective Martinez's car disappeared into the night, heading towards safety and an uncertain future, none of them knew that the most dangerous part of their journey was still ahead. The safe house was a modest cottage nestled in a wooded area outside the city. It belonged to retired Detective Frank Williams, A man in his 60s with silver hair and gentle eyes who had spent 30 years protecting families in situations just like theirs. He welcomed them at the door despite the late hour, his face creased with concern and kindness. "You must be Jake," Frank said, kneeling down to the boy's eye level. "Detective Martinez told me you're quite the hero." Jake, still clutching Luna's paper crown, looked up at this new stranger with cautious curiosity. "Are we safe here?" "As safe as I can make you," Frank promised. "I've got security cameras, motion sensors, and enough experience to spot trouble before it gets close." The cottage was small but comfortable, with a stone fireplace, warm wooden furniture, and windows that looked out into the peaceful darkness of the surrounding forest. Frank had already prepared a quiet room for Luna and her puppies, complete with soft blankets and easy access to food and water. "She'll be comfortable here," Frank assured them, as they settled Luna into her new temporary home. "I've helped protect a lot of families over the years, but this is my first time with a dog family." Luna seemed to approve of the new space. She circled the area once, checking every corner before settling down with her puppies. But even in this secure environment, she remained alert, her ears constantly moving to track sounds from outside. Jake carefully placed the paper crown on a small table next to Luna's bed. "So, you remember where home really is?" he whispered to her. Detective Martinez stayed for another hour, going over security procedures with Frank and updating them on the investigation. "My team is moving fast," she explained. "We've got undercover officers watching the main facility now, and we're gathering evidence for a comprehensive raid. If everything goes according to plan, we should be able to move within 24 to 36 hours. "What about the people who tried to break into our apartment?" Marcus asked. "We're tracking them too. The license plates from those vans led us to a network of associates connected to the breeding operation. Once we make arrests at the main facility, the smaller players will likely back off." After Detective Martinez left, Frank showed them around the cottage and explained the security measures. Motion sensors covered all approaches to the house, cameras monitored the perimeter, and panic buttons were located in every room. "The most important thing is to stay inside and keep the curtains closed," Frank explained. "I know it feels like being trapped, but it's only temporary." That first night at the safe house was difficult for everyone. Jake had trouble sleeping in the unfamiliar bed, waking up several times to check on Luna and the puppies. Marcus lay awake listening to every sound from the forest, his mind racing with worry about what the next day might bring. But Luna seemed to understand that they were all in this together. When Jake crept into the living room for the third time that night, she gently licked his hand and allowed him to curl up next to her bed. Having the boy nearby seemed to calm her own anxiety about their new surroundings. Wednesday morning brought both good news and a new challenge. The good news came from Detective Martinez, who called early to report that the investigation was progressing rapidly. "We've identified the main players in this operation," she said. "It's bigger than we initially thought. They've got facilities in 3 different states and connections to illegal dog fighting rings." "Does that make Luna more valuable to them?" Marcus asked, dreading the answer. "Unfortunately, yes. But it also means that shutting them down will have a much bigger impact. When we move, we're not just saving Luna, we're potentially rescuing hundreds of animals." The new challenge came in the form of Jake's growing restlessness. The 5-year-old had been remarkably mature and patient throughout their ordeal, but being confined to the cottage was wearing on him. "I want to take Luna for a walk," Jake announced after breakfast. "She needs exercise and the puppies need fresh air." Frank looked sympathetic, but firm. "I know it's hard, buddy, but we can't risk going outside where someone might see us." Jake's lower lip trembled with frustration. "But Luna's been stuck inside for days. It's not fair to her." Marcus knelt down beside his son. "You're right that it's not fair, Jake. Sometimes life isn't fair, and we have to do things we don't like to keep the people we love safe." "But what if Luna gets sad? What if she thinks we don't care about her anymore?" Before Marcus could answer, Luna herself provided the solution. She padded over to where Jake was sitting and gently nudged his shoulder with her nose. Then she lay down beside him and rested her head on his lap, her tail wagging softly. Jake's face brightened immediately. "She's telling me she understands," he said with certainty. "She knows we're protecting her family." Frank watched this interaction with amazement. In 30 years of law enforcement, I've never seen a bond like the one between that boy and that dog. Around noon, Detective Martinez arrived with both an update and a request. "The raid is happening tonight," she announced. "My team has enough evidence to shut down the entire operation. But there's something else." She showed them a photo on her tablet. A man in his 50s with cold eyes and an expensive suit. "This is Vincent Cross, the man who runs the breeding operation. He's been making calls all morning, offering a $50,000 reward for information leading to Luna's return." Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. $50,000? "That's more than most people make in a year," Detective Martinez said grimly. "It means he's getting desperate, which makes him more dangerous but also more likely to make mistakes." "What kind of mistakes?" Frank asked. "The kind that get him arrested," Detective Martinez replied. "But here's what I need from you. We think Cross might try one more direct approach before tonight's raid. He might contact you personally, pretending to negotiate." "Contact us how?" Marcus asked. "We're not at our apartment anymore." Detective Martinez hesitated. "The radio interview you did yesterday, it was heard by a lot of people. Cross's people might try to trace it back to you. But we used fake names. Voice recognition technology is getting very sophisticated. If they have the resources, they might be able to identify you." Marcus felt a chill of fear, but Jake spoke up with surprising calmness. "What do you need us to do?" Detective Martinez looked at the 5-year-old with respect. "If Cross contacts your dad, we want your dad to agree to meet with him, but it would be a trap. We'd have officers in place to arrest Cross when he shows up." "You want to use us as bait?" Marcus asked. "I want to end this before Cross has a chance to hurt anyone else. Your family, Luna's family, or the hundreds of animals still trapped in his facilities." Frank nodded slowly. "It's risky, but it might be the fastest way to end this." Marcus looked at Jake, then at Luna and her puppies. The dog seemed to sense the gravity of the conversation, watching the adults with intelligent eyes. "If we do this," Marcus said finally, "what guarantees do we have that everyone stays safe?" "My best officers, surveillance equipment, and a plan that doesn't put any of you in real danger," Detective Martinez promised. "Cross would be surrounded before he knew what was happening. And if we don't do this, then this could drag on for weeks or months. Cross might go underground, relocate his operation, and start over somewhere else, and he'll never stop looking for Luna." Jake had been listening to this conversation with the serious expression he wore when making important decisions. Now he spoke up in his clear, determined voice. "Luna chose us to protect her," he said simply. "If this helps protect her and all the other dogs, then we should do it." The adults all stared at Jake, amazed by his mature reasoning. "You understand that this could be dangerous?" Marcus asked his son. "I understand that doing nothing is more dangerous," Jake replied. "For everyone." Detective Martinez spent the next 2 hours going over the plan in detail. If Cross contacted Marcus, he would agree to meet at a public location, a park with multiple escape routes and clear sight lines for surveillance. Marcus would go alone, wearing a wire, while Jake and Luna remained safely at the cottage with Frank. "The key is to keep Cross talking long enough for us to gather evidence of his criminal activities," Detective Martinez explained. "Get him to admit he owns the breeding facility, that he's been tracking you, anything that ties him to illegal activities." "What if he gets suspicious?" Marcus asked. "Then you leave immediately. We'll have a code word. If you say birthday, we move in instantly." As afternoon turned to evening, they waited for Cross to make contact. Marcus's phone remained silent, and Detective Martinez's team reported no unusual activity around the breeding facility. Then, at exactly 7 o'clock, Marcus's phone rang. The caller ID showed an unknown number. Detective Martinez nodded and activated the recording equipment, while Frank moved to a position where he could watch for any approaching vehicles. Marcus answered the phone. "Is this the father of the boy who found my dog?" The voice was smooth, cultured, and cold. "I don't know what you're talking about," Marcus said, following the script he and Detective Martinez had practiced. "Please don't insult my intelligence," the voice continued. "Voice recognition technology has advanced considerably. You did a radio interview yesterday about a German shepherd named Luna." Marcus felt his heart pounding, but kept his voice steady. "What do you want?" "I want my property returned. Luna is a valuable breeding female who was stolen from my facility. I'm prepared to offer you compensation for your trouble." "She wasn't stolen. We found her, abandoned at a street fair. Cross chuckled, a sound devoid of warmth. Abandoned? Mr. Davis, Luna is worth more money than you make in several years. She wasn't abandoned. She escaped during a transport, and I want her back. The use of Marcus's real last name sent a chill down his spine. Cross had identified him completely. I don't think she wants to go back to wherever she came from, Marcus said carefully. What she wants is irrelevant. She's property, not a pet. But I'm a reasonable businessman. I'll pay you $25,000 for her return, no questions asked. And if I refuse? Cross's voice grew harder. Then I'll retrieve my property through other means. Your current location is quite isolated, isn't it? Lovely area, but very few neighbors to hear if something unfortunate happened. Marcus felt ice in his veins. Cross knew about the safe house. Are you threatening me and my son? I'm offering you a business proposition. Meet me tonight at Riverside Park, near the pavilion where you found Luna. Come alone, bring the dog, and you'll leave $25,000 richer. What about her puppies? The puppies were born in your care, so you can keep them. I only want Luna. Marcus looked at Detective Martinez, who was frantically typing messages to her team. She held up a sign that said, "Agree to meet." I'll need time to think about it, Marcus said. You have 30 minutes, Cross replied. Then the offer expires, and I resort to other methods. The line went dead. Detective Martinez immediately called her team. Cross knows about the safe house, she said urgently. We need to move everyone now. How is that possible? Frank asked, checking his security monitors. He's got resources we underestimated, Detective Martinez replied. Professional surveillance, maybe even law enforcement contacts. Jake appeared in the doorway, having overheard part of the conversation. What's happening? We need to leave, Marcus said, gathering their belongings quickly. Right now. But as Frank checked the perimeter cameras, his face went pale. We might be too late, he said quietly. On the monitors, they could see vehicles moving through the forest toward the cottage. No headlights, but the infrared cameras picked up their heat signatures clearly. How many? Detective Martinez asked. At least 3 vehicles, maybe more, Frank replied. They'll be here in less than 10 minutes. Luna sensed the urgency in the room and began gathering her puppies protectively. Jake ran to her side and carefully placed the paper crown back on her head. We have to be brave now, Luna, he whispered, just like you taught me. Detective Martinez made rapid phone calls, coordinating with her backup teams. But Marcus realized that help might not arrive in time. As the sound of approaching engines grew louder in the darkness outside, Marcus understood that their peaceful refuge had become a trap. Cross hadn't been. Interested in a simple business transaction, he had been buying time to surround them. The final confrontation was about to begin, and there was nowhere left to run. Frank moved with the efficiency of a man who had faced danger countless times before. Basement, he said tersely, grabbing emergency supplies from a hidden closet. There's a tunnel that leads to the old storm shelter about 200 yards into the woods. Detective Martinez was coordinating frantically with her backup teams through her radio. ETA on support is 8 minutes, she reported. We need to hold them off or get out of here before then. Marcus scooped up Jake, while Luna instinctively gathered her puppies. The paper crown slipped from her head as she moved, but Jake caught it before it hit the floor. I've got it, Luna, he whispered, clutching the crown against his chest as they hurried toward the basement stairs. The basement was small but well prepared. Frank had clearly anticipated this possibility. Emergency supplies, communication equipment, and a reinforced door that looked like it could withstand significant force. But the real lifeline was the tunnel entrance hidden behind a bookshelf. This leads to an old civil defense shelter from the 1960s, Frank explained as he moved the bookshelf aside. From there, we can get to the main road without being seen. The tunnel was narrow and dark, barely wide enough for an adult to move through comfortably. Marcus worried about Luna navigating it with 5 puppies, but the German Shepherd seemed to understand the urgency. She picked up one puppy in her mouth while Jake carefully gathered the other 4 in a small blanket. I'll carry Pebble, Sky, and Bolt, Jake announced with determination. You get Muffin and Comet, Dad. As they prepared to enter the tunnel, the sound of vehicles stopping outside the cottage became unmistakable. Car doors slammed, and voices could be heard giving directions. Move fast, but stay quiet, Frank instructed. I'll stay here and delay them as long as possible. You can't face them alone, Marcus protested. I can and I will, Frank replied firmly. My job is to protect you and that family, get them to safety. Detective Martinez made the decision for all of them. Frank's right, he's trained for this, and my backup is almost here. We need to get Luna and the puppies out of harm's way. They entered the tunnel just as heavy footsteps could be heard on the cottage's front porch. Luna went first, moving carefully with one puppy in her mouth. Jake followed, crawling with remarkable determination while protecting the 3 puppies in his arms. Marcus came next, carrying the remaining 2 puppies, with Detective Martinez bringing up the rear. The tunnel seemed endless in the darkness. Jake's small body was better suited for the cramped space, but he moved slowly to accommodate Luna's cautious progress. Every few feet, Luna would stop to check on the puppies she was carrying and to make sure the others were still safe with Jake and Marcus. Behind them, they could hear muffled sounds from the cottage, voices, footsteps, and what sounded like furniture being moved. Frank was apparently putting up resistance, buying them precious time. Almost there, Detective Martinez whispered as they saw a faint light ahead. The storm shelter was a concrete room that smelled of dampness and age, but it felt like a palace compared to the cramped tunnel. Luna immediately set down her puppy and began checking on the others, counting them with the instinctive precision of a mother. Jake carefully unwrapped the blanket and helped reunite the puppies with their mother. Despite everything they had been through, all 5 babies were unharmed and already beginning to nurse again. They don't even know how much danger they were in, Jake observed with wonder. Detective Martinez checked her radio and smiled with relief. Backup units have arrived at the cottage. They're surrounding the building now. Through the concrete walls, they could hear the distant sound of sirens and what might have been shouting. The confrontation above ground was happening without them. "What about Frank?" Marcus asked anxiously. "Frank knows how to handle himself," Detective Martinez assured him, "and now he's got backup." They waited in the shelter for what felt like hours, but was probably only 30 minutes. Luna settled the puppies around her and dozed fitfully, while Jake sat beside her, gently stroking her fur and whispering reassurances. "It's almost over, Luna," Jake said softly. "Soon we'll go home, and you won't have to be scared anymore." Finally, Detective Martinez's radio crackled with good news. "All suspects in custody," came the voice through the static. "Scene is secure. Package is safe for extraction." "Package?" Jake asked. Detective Martinez grinned. "That's police code for you guys." When they emerged from the storm shelter, the cottage area was filled with police vehicles, their red and blue lights painting the trees in alternating colors. Frank met them halfway back to the house, looking tired but satisfied. "Everyone's under arrest," he reported. "Vincent Cross, 3 associates, and enough evidence to put them away for a very long time." "What kind of evidence?" Marcus asked. Cross was carrying documentation about his breeding operations, including Luna's original registration papers. He essentially provided us with everything we needed to prove the illegal nature of his business. Jake looked up at Frank with admiration. "You stopped all the bad guys?" "We all stopped the bad guys," Frank corrected gently. "You and your dad and Luna. You were the bravest part of this whole operation." Detective Martinez approached with additional news. "The raid on Cross's main facility happened simultaneously with the arrest here. We rescued over 200 dogs from conditions that, well, let's just say Luna is very lucky she got away when she did." "What happens to all those dogs?" Jake asked, his young heart immediately concerned for animals he had never met. "They'll be rehabilitated and found loving homes," Detective Martinez promised, "just like Luna found you." As the law enforcement activity wound down and the various teams prepared to leave, Marcus realized they faced a new question. "Where do we go now?" he asked. "Our apartment probably isn't safe yet." "Actually, it is," Detective Martinez said. "With Cross and his associates in custody, the threat is over. You can go home whenever you're ready." Frank overheard this conversation and made an offer. "You're welcome to stay here tonight and head back in the morning. After everything that's happened, you might appreciate one more quiet night." Jake looked at Luna and her puppies, then up at his father. "Can we, Dad?" "I think Luna likes it here." Marcus agreed, and they spent a peaceful final night at the cottage. For the first time in days, Luna seemed truly relaxed. She allowed Jake to help arrange the puppies for feeding, and even accepted the paper crown when Jake gently placed it back on her head. "This is where you became really safe," Jake told her. "I want you to remember this place." The next morning brought a beautiful sunrise and the promise of returning to normal life. But as they prepared to leave, Detective Martinez had one more surprise. "I've been in touch with the local news stations," she said. "The story of Luna's rescue and Cross's arrest has become national news. People from all over the country want to help support you and Luna." "What kind of help?" Marcus asked. "Donations, offers of veterinary care, people wanting to adopt the puppies when they're old enough. There's even a publishing company interested in turning your story into a children's book." Jake's eyes lit up. "A book about Luna?" "A book about a little boy who showed the world that kindness is stronger than cruelty," Detective Martinez clarified. As they drove back to their apartment, Marcus reflected on everything that had changed in just 1 week. They had started as a single father and his son, living a quiet life. Now they were a family that included a heroic dog and 5 puppies, with a story that had touched millions of people around the world. Their apartment building was decorated with balloons and welcome signs. Neighbors who had barely spoken to them before came out to greet them and meet Luna. Mrs. Rodriguez had tears in her eyes as she hugged Jake. "You did something amazing, mijo," she told him. "You saved a whole family." Dr. Sarah arrived within an hour of their return to examine Luna and the puppies. All 6 were healthy and thriving, showing no ill effects from their adventure. "Luna's gained weight, her coat is shinier, and she's more alert than when I first met her," Dr. Sarah reported. "Whatever you've been doing, keep it up." "We've been loving her," Jake said simply. "That's the best." "Medicine there is," Dr. Sarah agreed. Over the following weeks, their lives settled into a new normal. Luna proved to be everything they had hoped for in a family dog: gentle, intelligent, protective, and endlessly patient with Jake. The puppies grew rapidly, developing distinct personalities that delighted Jake. Pebble, the smallest, was also the most adventurous. Sky was calm and thoughtful like her mother. Bolt lived up to his name with bursts of puppy energy. Muffin was the cuddliest, always seeking affection. And Comet, the puppy Jake had helped save during birth, remained the most devoted to the boy who had given him life. Applications to adopt the puppies came from all over the country, but Jake insisted on personally interviewing each potential family. He wanted to make sure they understood that these weren't just pets. They were Luna's children, and they deserved homes filled with love. "This family has 2 kids who promise to play with Sky every day," Jake reported after one video call interview. "And they have a big backyard and another dog for her to be friends with." "What about this application?" Marcus asked, showing Jake a letter from a therapy dog organization. "Bolt would be perfect for that," Jake decided. "He loves meeting new people, and he could help sick kids feel better." One evening, as Jake was playing with the puppies while Luna watched from her favorite spot on the couch, Marcus received a call from the publisher Detective Martinez had mentioned. "We'd like to offer you a contract for Jake's story," the editor explained. "Not just a book deal, we're thinking about a whole series featuring Luna and her family, with proceeds going to animal rescue organizations." Marcus looked at Jake, who was currently wearing Luna's paper crown while teaching Comet to sit. "What do you think, buddy?" Marcus asked. "Want to be a famous author?" Jake considered this seriously. "Will it help more dogs like Luna?" "That's the plan." "Then yes. But Luna gets to be the co-author. This is her story too." 6 months later, Luna's Crown, A Story of Kindness, was published, featuring illustrations of Jake placing the paper crown on Luna's head at the fair. The book became a bestseller, with children around the world learning about empathy, courage, and the power of standing up for those who can't speak for themselves. Jake insisted on keeping one of the puppies, Comet, the one he had helped save. "Comet and Luna need to stay together," he explained, "and our family isn't complete without both of them." Marcus couldn't argue with that logic. A year after that day at the fair, Jake celebrated his 6th birthday with a party in their local park, the same park where they had almost met Cross for that dangerous confrontation. But now it was filled with laughter, friends, and dozens of dogs whose families had been inspired by Luna's story. Luna, now healthy and confident, wore a new crown, a proper dog tiara that Jake had, picked out specially for the occasion. She supervised the festivities with regal dignity, while Comet played enthusiastically with the other young dogs. "Make a wish, Jake," Marcus said, as his son prepared to blow out the candles on his birthday cake. Jake closed his eyes tightly, then opened them and smiled at Luna. "I wished that every dog in the world could find a family that loves them as much as we love Luna and Comet." As Jake blew out the candles, Luna's tail wagged, and Marcus knew that somehow, in the magical way that wishes sometimes work, Jake's dream would continue to come true. One act of kindness at a time. The paper crown from that first day at the fair now sat in a place of honor on Jake's bookshelf, next to copies of their published story in dozens of languages. It served as a reminder that sometimes the smallest gestures can change the world, and that love really is stronger than any force that tries to divide us. Luna had found her family, and in doing so, she had helped a little boy discover the hero that had always lived in his heart. If this incredible story of courage, kindness, and the unbreakable bond between a boy and his dog touched your heart, please subscribe to hear more amazing true stories that will restore your faith in humanity. Share Luna's story with someone who needs to remember that love always wins. And let us know in the comments how this story made you feel. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that matter.